How does democracy affect economic growth in India? That India is a democracy is an anomaly. Countries that are as poor as India and have as diverse a population are generally not democracies. But for the past 65 years, Indians have gone to the polls regularly, have voted out the incumbents with some frequency, and the incumbents have ceded power rather peacefully. Though periodically there are reports of voter fraud and other electoral malpractices, no one seriously doubts that the electoral outcomes in India, by and large, reflect the popular mandate. India's pride at having sustained a democracy is often diluted by the possibility, raised by some economists and political scientists, that democracy might be a factor hindering economic growth in a poor country. There is little use in talking about a general theory about the effect of democracy on economic growth, since the practice of democracy varies quite a bit across countries. In India, one can see that the effect of democracy on growth has cut both ways. The economist Amartya Sen has credited India's democracy and free press for keeping the country famine-free since independence, a feat that has eluded its richer neighbor China. The reason is that reckless policies such as the Great Leap Forward in China are kept in check in a democratic system with free press such as India's. On the flip side, Indian leaders, with their one eye always towards the next election, experience enormous pressure to redistribute income and spend on consumption rather than investment. Such actions are arguably detrimental to long-term economic growth. So, for example, in addition to the permanent but poorly targeted subsidies for food and fuel, Indian politicians in the past, in order to win over pivotal voter groups, have also given out subsidies for televisions, pilgrimage, and wedding-related purchases of gold jewelry. The second hindering factor is that democracy makes it harder to complete large infrastructure projects. This is because such projects usually displace some people. As public choice economists have long pointed out, in a democracy, a small but a well-organized group can mount an effective opposition to a project that promotes the general welfare but harms particular interests. A comparison in this regard with India's authoritarian neighbor China is illustrative. On the left is the picture of the Three Gorges Dam in China, the biggest dam in the world. The Chinese government decided to begin construction in 1994, and after 15 years in 2009, the dam was fully operational, providing irrigation, hydroelectricity, and flood control. The construction of the dam displaced 1.3 million people, who had no choice but to move in face of the government's determination to build the dam. Contrast it to the case of the Narmada Dam in India. It is a relatively modest project that displaced 0.2 million people, a sixth of the number displaced by Three Gorges Dam. The foundation stone for the Narmada Dam was laid in 1964. The construction did not really get underway, however, until 1987 because the three Indian states involved in its construction clashed for over 20 years over how the costs and benefits were to be divided. Then, in the 90s, construction had to be halted because of legal challenges in the courts made by environmental groups and community organizers who worked among the displaced people. The environmentalists and community organizers also used the country's free press and international openness to mobilize NGOs in Western countries against the dam. The Western NGOs then put pressure on the World Bank, which in 1994 backed off from financing the project. It is only recently in 2014 that the dam has become operational after clearing all legal challenges, though some construction still remains. Another illustrative example is of the airports. The airport in Shanghai, China's commercial capital, is a modern and elegant structure of glass and steel. People who land at this airport are quickly whisked away to the city center in a futuristic-looking train that levitates in a magnetic field and can achieve speeds of 300 miles per hour. The airport in Mumbai, India's commercial capital, is one of the world's most congested airports, where departing passengers have to queue up for an hour just to enter the airport terminal. The ambition of the airport authority has been rather modest. It wants to build one additional runway because currently there are only 2 runways and they cross, and so they cannot be used at the same time. Atlanta's Hartsfield Airport, in comparison, has 5 runways, and Chicago's O'Hare Airport has 8. The construction of the additional runway in Mumbai, however, has been held up because the government land adjacent to the airport on which the runway is to be built has been squatted on over the years by poor migrants from the countryside and has been turned into a slum. The slum dwellers have elected representatives in the state legislature who ensure that the airport expansion does not move forward. The government is unwilling to forcibly evict the squatters. Doing so in order to make room for the rich people to land their jets would not be great for their re-election chances in a country where the majority of people are poor. Recently, the government completed a $800 million major renovation of the airport, which now boasts a spanking new terminal that eliminates the need for passengers to queue up outside, but the additional runway wasn't built. Such are the constraints that India's democratic politics imposes on reformers impatient for economic growth. The video draws from the following academic resources that one can refer to for more information.